Hey guys, welcome back to RPO Restorations. If you tuned into my latest video, you'll know that I just pulled the plugs out of the 350 cubic inch motor in my 93 Blazer. Figure while the plugs are out, this would be a good time to do a compression check because I'm trying to get an idea about the overall health of the engine. So today we're going to delve into that. Let's take a walk over the car and get started. Alright, so a compression check will give us a good idea about what's going on in each cylinder. It'll kind of tell us if the piston rings are bad or if I'm having an issue with valve sticking or valve seals and things like that. It'll also tell us exactly how well each cylinder is running compared to the other ones. So there's a little bit of math involved, but we'll get into that in the end. But two things you have to remember. Number one, no matter what kind of compression testing kit you're using, and I'll get into mine in a second when we go to install it, always remember that when you screw the hose into your spark plug hole, just do it hand tight. You don't need to use any kind of tools or anything like that. And number two, you have to disconnect the ignition system in some way. Now each car is different, but in the case of this Chevy 350 cubic inch TBI, we can disconnect the lead from the coil to the distributor, and that'll disable the ignition system. In other cars with direct ignition or a GM AGI system, you have to do things a little bit different. So just keep that in mind. You always want to disable that. All right, I'm going to take a walk to the other side. We're going to install our gauge and we're going to take a look at our first cylinder. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and threaded this OTC compression tester from the kit that I bought off Amazon into the number one cylinder spark plug hole. I don't have anything to do with OTC. I don't get anything for free, but they do put out a very high quality tool and it is available on Amazon, which makes life a lot easier for me. So if you're in the market for one, you might want to check these out. So we've threaded the end of the hose into the number one cylinder. We're now going to crank the engine, let it cycle about 4 or 5 times and see what our compression reading is. Let's do that, take a look. All right, so as you can see, it looks like I'm getting a little over 150 PSI in cylinder number one. But before we can draw any conclusions from that, we'll have to check the rest. So let's run through 3, 5, and 7, then we'll move on over to the other side and take a look at our numbers. Hey, so here, now that we've taken compression readings from every cylinder, here's what we're working with. And there's two things that I'm looking for. Number one, every cylinder, the compression kind of climbed fairly gradually and evenly. I don't want to say slowly because that would be a sign of another problem, but it looks like we had a good climb as we cranked the engine in the compression of each cylinder, which tells us that we don't have any problems with our valves or anything like that. Also, we're getting fairly even compression across every cylinder. Every cylinder is not going to be the same, but you want them to be fairly similar across the board. Now here, our biggest jump is cylinder 8's putting out 170 PSI, and our lowest is cylinder number 7 is putting out 149 PSI. That tells us that all of our piston rings are good. If we had an issue where we had, say, one cylinder that was getting much lower compression, we would do a wet compression test by adding a couple tablespoons of oil to the cylinder, see if that improved things. But that's not something I need to worry about. And also, when I talk about uniformity across our compression, you want to make sure your highest cylinder is no more than 20% higher than your lowest cylinder. So here Our highest cylinder is putting out 170 psi. We'll move the decimal over one place. That'll give us 17 psi is 10%. So 20% will be 34. So we want every cylinder to be within 34 psi of the other one, and that's exactly what we have here. So I'd say we're doing pretty good. Oh, I almost forgot, and I do want to mention this. Say hypothetically I was getting two cylinders next to each other, like let's say 5 and 3 had very low compression compared to the other 6. That could be an indicator that you have a problem with the head gasket, particularly a leak between these two cylinders. So that's something you want to watch out for when you do this test too. All right, guys, so that's it. We did a compression test on the motor, and so far, so good. I'm actually very happy with the results I got. I was hoping maybe, I wouldn't find any surprises, and I didn't, so I'm happy with that. If you have any more tips or tricks when it comes to these, do me a favor and leave them down in the comment section so other guys can read this stuff and learn a little bit something. Don't forget to hit that like button for the video, and also hit the subscribe button if you want to follow along for more. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you on the next one.